Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. I thought today we could go over this old Pine drill grinder. I'll start by explaining some of its features and some of its equipment that was missing when I got it. I will mention that I've been online. I was unable to find a manual for this thing. So I'm not entirely sure how it works, but I'm going to run you through what I do know and we'll see what kind of results we get. This unit here is meant to advance your drill through the sharpening process. So you can slide this to anywhere you want it, lock it down, and then do some grinding on one flute, flip the drill to the other side, catch that side up with some more grinding, and then advance it some more. Interestingly, when I first got this machine, the very first drill bit I went to sharpen was too long for the machine. So I made this little extension here, which adds quite a bit to the machine's capacity and allows me to do much longer drill bits. Incidentally, this machine is rated from 1/4 inch diameter up to 3-inch diameter drill bits. I haven't used it a ton, but I was pretty disappointed with it early on, and maybe that's a big part of it. I do struggle personally to see how you would have much luck with a 1/4 inch drill bit in here. It seems to me, from my experience, the bigger, the better it seemed to work. This thing came with like a plain style wheel on it, and you can see how it's been wearing in at this sort of beveled angle here. And what I found was happening was that this whole surface would take different turns at contacting the drill bit, and I'm sure this is not what's meant to be on here. I think a straight cup wheel is probably what is actually meant to be on here. So I have put a flaring cup wheel on. That's the closest I have. So now it'll grind on one line and not across the whole surface. I also believe this is supposed to have a straight face on it, because this diamond dressing tool, which is missing its dressing bit, travels straight back and forth across the wheel. So I think you want a nice flat surface to do your grinding with, not a beveled surface the way this wheel is worn. Another piece that was missing from this when I first got it was sort of a little tool alignment blade that would sit up in the front here. So what I've done, you need some way of controlling the rotation of your tool from one side to the other. So I've just set up this pointer finger from my tool and cutter grinding setup, and we're going to try it with that, because as long as you can accurately reproduce the grind on one side and match the grind on the other side, it should all work just fine. The whole motor swings on this machine, and that's what gives us our cam relieving action. And this is a slide that allows you to adjust the wheel in and out, and with the in and out comes some up and down, as you can tell. Now, I'm not entirely sure exactly what that's for, but I suspect it allows you to center your wheel to the edge that you're grinding through different diameters of drill bit. There's also another adjustable knuckle down here, and this allows the motor mount to pivot on the main pivot bearing, which it seems to me if you go too far one way with it, you don't manage to grind all the way to the back of your tool, and if you go too far the other way, you're starting before you get to the front of the tool, which of course is no good. So I think this is just the sort of thing you just kind of wing it and make sure that your grinding wheel can start before it's touching your tool, go all the way across, cutting to the back of your tool, and then go a little further so it completely comes off your tool. So I currently have that set just kind of where it seems to be happiest. And again, that's based on very little knowledge or understanding. So as far as setup goes, I do have this edge that I'm grinding positioned pretty much vertically. It just seems to make sense. So that's where we're going to start with that. And now at the same time that this is sitting here, I have this set so the wheel is just barely wanting to start touching. I think that's a good starting point. So now I'm going to actually bring this guy in without moving my drill. I'm going to lock it in place and that should be what gives me my advance feed as I go from one side of the drill to the other. Back to another feature, there's this handle here, and basically you would make your grinding pass and then rock this handle, which brings the whole thing away from the wheel for your return and for you to adjust the drill over to the next tooth. So we'll pretend I had just made a pass. I rock this back out of the way. I can get my hands in there now, rotate this drill around to the next tooth, and then I want it to be touching the pointer, butted back against the feed, and sitting nicely down into the angle iron. And then I could go ahead, rock it back forwards, and then make my pass on the other side. There's a handle here on top of the motor, which is to hang on to when you're running this, with traveling it back and forth like this. As for the drill bit in there, nothing actually clamps it down. I think it's on the operator just to hold it still and in the proper position while the grinding is going on. Finally, there's these two switches. One is for the work light and the other is to start the grinder motor. So now that we're all set up and I've explained some of the basic controls and features and so on, let's go ahead and give this thing a try and see what kind of job it does. So here we go. This drill had been ground by hand and the angle was a little off and the one lip was a little different than the other, so I'm just going to keep advancing this and grinding here until I get both edges fully cleaned up and meeting at the center. Well, then we'll take a look and see how it seems to be. My pointer here, I can tell it's probably a bit more of a pain in the neck than the original would have been, and we may get around to making a replacement, but I wasn't able to find any pictures online that were really good enough to really let me know what used to be there, so I'd pretty much be just winging it anyways. Well, that's what we're getting. Doesn't look too bad. I want to question slightly if there's adequate relief here at the back. One kind of quick and easy way to check if you've got clearance at the back is to take something that's round, and when I lay that on there, it's sitting on the cutting edges only, and I can rock it some back and forth before it hits the backs of the teeth. And so that does tell me that, yes, we do indeed have clearance at the back of the tooth. So now I've got a bigger hole that's closer to the outside diameter of the drill. And actually, now I'm sitting on the cutting edges, but I'm also touching back here as I feared. So I think it needs some more tinkering. There's probably a way to adjust that machine to give me more clearance towards the back. Now, if you look at this drill bit, it kind of looks a little goofy. Now here's one that I've sharpened by hand just to give some reference. And this clearly has all kinds of good clearance way back in here. And this one is, there's less clearance there, there's no doubt. I'm just going to paint these edges up, these surfaces up with some marker because I want to know exactly where I touch after making some adjustments to the machine. And I'm pretty much just winging it as far as these adjustments go. Again, never had any instructions, never seen a video of someone using one. So I'm kind of winging it, but in my favor, I do know what a drill is supposed to look like. So we can keep tinkering with this thing until we get it doing a better job than this. The only thing to adjust on here that makes any real sense to me at this point is this knuckle here. Now, so I'm just going to take this marker, and this is going to be, our baseline. This is going to be where we started. If you look at the travel of this motor head, I have all this space, all this travel before I start grinding. So I could give up a little of that, or I could add to that. Now this area here is where we're actually grinding. We have to be able to come, remember, all the way off the front and all the way off the back. And now I have all this room at the back of the cut. There's quite a bit of room there, and I can give up some of that. So I think since I have no idea what's going to do what, I'm just going to try something, make sure it falls within the parameters of coming all the way off the front, all the way off the back, see what happens. If we're still not happy, then we can go past this original line in the other direction and see what happens there. So the first thing I'm going to try is giving up some of this extra travel at the end of the cut. And so I am going to loosen this off, rotate this up this way. I think that's the end of my travel. I still come off the back of the edge fine. And now I come way past the front of it, but I do come off the back slightly. By eye, it looks like this is going to have the opposite effect than what I would like, but we're going to give it a quick try anyhow and see what happens. So just getting set back up, and the first thing I notice is my wheel's touching at the leading edge, and I can see a decent gap between the wheel and the trailing edge. So that leads me to believe that it would make this relief issue even worse. So rather than, grind away drill bit unnecessarily, unproductively, I'm going to go ahead and adjust this thing back the other way and see if that changes how things seem to be. I've adjusted this knuckle here so that we have very little extra before we enter into the grinding, and I can tell already this is not going to give me the effect I like. I can see it wanting to rub right at the leading edge, and I can see a gap at the trailing edge, which is where I want more clearance. So I don't think that that is the answer either. I think where it was just randomly set to begin with is probably going to give us the most reasonable form of grind on there. All this time I have been assuming that this movement here is to get you away from the grinding wheel while you adjust to the next tooth. But I'm wondering now if maybe by adjusting this, if I were to do it in this position, I could get quite a bit more of this sticking out, which would really move my pivot point much closer to the center. I'm going to play with that. I'm going to see what that does. Yeah, that seems to be what we want. Now I'm hitting at the back way before the front. This is the adjustment we've been needing all this time, I believe. This is looking like it's making sense here, guys, so much so that I'm going to go ahead and take a couple passes. Now, what I expect we're going to see is the marker is coming off the heel of the cutting edge well before it makes its way up to the leading edge. So let's see what happens. This is a little awkward with this pointer. I'm certain it's not the way it's supposed to be, but we'll muddle through here. Yes, we're getting quite a bit more clearance at the back of that. I like what I'm seeing so far. So awkward. I'm a couple passes in now. You can definitely see where we're taking material off the back, and that's exactly what I was hoping to see. We also appear to be changing the cutting angle slightly, which is a bit of a side product. And we may also be changing the chisel edge angle slightly, but we'll know better when we pull it out. I am noticing that when I'm indexing this drill bit to the next tooth, I'm very, very close to this grinding wheel. And now that I have this whole mechanism all the way at the back, there's no way to give myself added clearance. So what I am going to do is put this knuckle back where we started, because then I had a good chunk of space before the grinding would start. And I want that clearance because this is just a little too tight. Don't want to ruin this tool. Now I have all this extra room here. It does still travel well past the back side, so I'm going to try it like this and see if that's more comfortable. It's quite awkward the way I have this set up with this pointer in here. But it'll certainly give us the idea, and it is doable. That change has made a significant difference. You can see now when we get to a larger hole size, nearly the size of the drill, there's a ton of clearance back there now. Possibly even a little too much, because we also have a pretty darn aggressive clearance right up at the cutting edge. And just judging by the angle of this chisel point, I think that this is actually a little too aggressive. And I think this would, it would cut like a banshee, but it wouldn't last long. So I'm going to shoot for something middle of the road. I'm going to adjust this knuckle back to the halfway point. We started out with this all the way up in here. Now we're all the way down here. I'm going to move it till the midpoint here, basically touches here. That should be middle of the road. I want to see if I have less clearance at the front, but still plenty at the back is what I'm hoping to see here. So I've adjusted this to the middle of the road. We started out with this all the way retracted, and I didn't feel there was quite enough clearance at the back of the tooth. Then our next test was with this all the way extended, And now I feel there's too much clearance both at the cutting edge and just everywhere. So now I'm middle of the road, and we're gonna see if that gives us something that we're happier with. I'm gonna paint these surfaces again so I can see what's happening as it's happening. And we should expect to see material come off of the leading edge first, and then we should see this clean up towards the back as we go. Well, let's see what happens here. See, we are definitely taking material off the leading edge first, as we expected. We still have not cleaned up to the back just yet. I do want to completely clean these surfaces both up so that I can really get a feel for how our relief is at the very back. Back to our little test hole, touching on the leading edges and decent clearance at the back side. So that may be kind of middle of the road, the best we're going to do. I am happier. This is a less excessive clearance right at the cutting edge. I am happy to see that. It's still a bit of a goofy look to it. I don't know if we're going to be able to make that look kind of more standard or not. I think we've just about tried every adjustment on this thing, and this might just be the nature of the beast. But we definitely have a reasonable amount of clearance, and we do have clearance all the way to the back. So this certainly will drill a hole. Although I have tried every different adjustment that this thing has available, I still feel that there could be some mystery here, and I welcome anyone who has some first-hand experience with one of these to share what you know. Maybe you've got a trick that I haven't seen or figured out that makes this look a little more standard, a little less goofy. Again, it'll cut fine, but just not a huge fan of the way it looks. That's going to do it for this video, guys. I hope you've enjoyed checking this thing out and got a good laugh out of me trying to figure it out. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.